Welcome back. Today is keynote day for Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, the yearly gathering of Apple programmers and developers. And in keeping with our office hours tradition, we'll be doing a second ear experience where you can watch the show however you like on whatever service you like and listen to us, our panel here, discussing how the show goes, what the announcements are, some of the behind-the-scenes techniques they're using in producing graphics and things like that. They're always a lot of fun. So that's 1 hour after this show ends. Right now, as always, about Apple plans, there's a lot of speculation, but nobody really knows what to expect this year. Lots of rumors about AI, lots of headlines indicating that Apple may be branding AI as Apple Intelligence inside the clan. Perhaps we'll see things relating to Apple Vision Pro. And also, sometimes at WWDC, there have been Apple hardware introduced. Not hearing much about that this year, at least I haven't, so we'll see. The keynote starts at 1 p.m. Eastern, which means 10 a.m. here on the Pacific Coast, 1 hour after this show ends. So that's what's happening now, and we're going to just have an open discussion from anybody who raises their hands about what they're expecting to see Apple talk about today. Apple has been relatively quiet, as always. Their security team has done their job. Lots of speculation on the internet, but other than those broad topics that I've kind of outlined there, I don't know of anything else that's coming in. I'm going to assume that some of the panelists here have some ideas, and should I start by thinking, Alex, anything you're expecting today?
Yeah, right now, a lot of us are hoping to see hardware, but we don't think we are. So we don't think there's going to be any hardware. I think a lot of us were hoping to see some pro desktop machines, with the M4 chips. But so far, that if that happens, the rumor was you'll know that Apple was extremely good at keeping that secret. So we do think that one of the interesting things to pay attention to, by the way, is the ability. Something that people like me are tracking very closely is the ability to use facial recognition to open specific apps. This is a rumor that just came out over the weekend. So using facial recognition to open now, we don't know whether that'll be extended to third parties or not. But being able to control security access, not on a per device basis, but a per app basis, is really interesting, as far as making as we kind of move down that path from a security perspective. So we're kind of interested to see what Apple does there. We do expect to see a lot of things focused on people like us, graphics arts and so on and so forth. I think that Apple has zeroed in on the fact that we buy a lot more computers than everybody else. Or we update more quickly. Like, for instance, yesterday I ran my studio to the absolute edge. So now I'm in the hunt for a faster computer. But a lot of people running Excel don't do that, or checking their email. Or that computer will last for 5 or 6 years. So I think that we probably will see more of that. We do expect to see more. I think you typically see more emojis and memojis and all those things that probably won't translate well to wider networks. So even as Apple moves past the green bubbles, it'll probably be things that you can only do in messages. I think Apple typically in this release puts out more things that are very specific to messages that won't translate. So I think I think you're going to see more of that. And again, I think that we're going to see a lot more of them rolling out things for the headset as far as the tools. So there's a lot that was left uncovered, like a lot of stuff we weren't told last year about how to stream and take photos and everything else in spatial video. Apple kind of there is some documentation, but it's pretty sparse. So we expect to see a lot more from Apple related to spatial video and potentially spatial audio, spatial video, spatial imagery in general, and a lot more when it comes to location tracking and location modeling and so on and so forth. So photogrammetry, those types of things. A lot of us are, from my perspective, are looking for those types of things.
Nigel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of two types of announcements. I think it's either going to be lots of functions, features, technologies, sort of the way that Alex was lining them up, although each one of those was obviously a significant piece of work. Or alternatively, or maybe as well, Apple has to use this to launch its manifesto in the AI world. So if you go back and watch the original iPhone, launch, what you see is what in the marketing world I would have called a manifesto. They laid the ground for what they believed the right answer was moving forward. An obvious part of that manifesto back to the iPhone was everybody has a stylus. It looks like this. It's a finger. And it's not going to be a separate device. So, well, they didn't call it a manifesto. That's really what it was. So I think Apple has to decide today, and, either it wants to lay its manifesto for the future. Where is it going to take AI, be that Apple Intelligence or artificial intelligence or whatever it is? Where's it going to take this thing? What does its future look like? Or it's not going to do that because that is really hard and takes a certain amount of energy and design that I don't know they've had since Jobs. And then they will just start iterating and bridging. If they iterate and bridge, you will see a huge impact on the Apple share price. It will go down because I think what the market has decided is this is Apple's time to talk AI. And so probably for the first time in years, we've really got an Apple keynote that is very strategically complicated for them. And somebody probably had to decide, and they could have decided this 3 years ago or 3 days ago, you don't know, less probably 3 days ago. Am I going to lay my manifesto for the future? So what I'm looking for is give me the blueprint, show me where you're taking these platforms with all the latest AI and type technology that will differentiate you in the future. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see if they do that.
Jason?
Oh, man. Okay, so in 2020, Apple introduced Face ID and Touch ID for the web. And I am really, really intrigued to see how they can integrate that and how they can push it in. Alex mentioned it earlier, but to be able to just add that extra second handshake would be really, really handy. And along those lines, I would also very much like to see how they start using something that's already part of iMessages, which is contact key verification. It's that public nonce that that can allow you to verify people for themselves with you. And it's a one-off thing, and it gives you a tiny little check mark in the contact once you've done that. But yeah, there's a whole lot here. So I'm just excited to see what they're gonna pursue.
Courtney Gooden.
Well, I think in their effort to be a leader in going green, I think Apple has been keeping it a secret for all these past few months. But I think they're going to announce that they're going to convert their Apple headquarters into a giant velodrome. And you're going to be, all the cyclists will be wearing any of the refurbished Vision Pros. And on their Vision Pros, they will visualize themselves cycling around through the Tuscan hills or anywhere they want. And on each of the bicycles will be the old motors from the Apple car that they never delivered, and they're going to be turned into generators that are going to generate electricity and transmit it back to a big microwave transmitter in the giant rainbow arch that is in the center of the velodrome.
You're going bold this year, bold predictions, Courtney. Let's go to Alexander. Alexander?
Yeah, like everybody else, I'm curious what they're going to do with the AI angle, but there's a couple things for me. One thing, I really want to see some substantial improvements in the iPadOS, because and we've talked about it here in the past, but the iPad hardware is it's well engineered, but it's over engineered, and it has been for a long time. And we're still, every year a new version comes out, and we're waiting for the software to catch up with the hardware, and we still haven't seen it. So I'm hoping we'll see a pretty big leap this year. The other thing from the hardware angle, when they first announced the M2 being available in the Mac Pro configuration, effectively they took the same chassis basically and made some minor internal modifications, put their own logic board in there and their processor. But I felt like that was just the start of something. There's a lot of room inside that case, and it makes me hopeful that maybe they're also going to do something even more extreme for people, that one small percentage of the market that needs that extra processing power. So I'm actually hoping that we're going to see a chip that's even more insane past ultra, like maybe M Ultra Extreme or something like that. Something that'll be like just really separated from the rest of the products, because I really feel that that machine, as great as it is with all the I/O, I think it needs even more separation from, say, a fully maxed out studio computer.
I've got 3 tiny ones, but I'm going to hold up until after Alex. Alex?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see as Apple moves forward. I do think that the AI is going to be like, it's basically, is it happening in the local, what happens at local, what happens and I think there's a lot of things they could do. I mean, they could do a lot of things to just make all of our lives a little easier. That's all done on-prem, or on the computer. And I think that we're going to see how they define that for everyone, how they're going to say, okay, we're going to do things in your mail, in your photos, in your other things like that are all sitting on your computer. And then we're going to go out to ChatGPT or other things or some kind of open AI solution if you want to get those other answers. And we're going to tie those in really tightly into that. So them defining what that looks like. And I will say that what will drive everyone crazy is that, Apple's a big marketing machine. And if they really go down the Apple intelligence, it's going to really make AI complicated. And they've done this in the past. It makes the AI term very complicated. People will be upset for a year or two, but the average consumer will start to think of AI as Apple intelligence and start to, they're pretty good at, making it their own. so it's going to be very hard for the market if they actually go down that path. There'll be a lot of people that are pretty frustrated that they've taken something old and turned it into something new that is, and then piled $1 billion of marketing behind it. It's going to be hard for people to avoid.
Alexander, you want to slip back in?
Yeah, I would be very happy if Siri could just do something super basic for me. Okay, so it's illegal to hold your phone or use your phone when you're driving, right? Most places. So I ask Siri while I'm driving, how long is it going to take for me to get home? And it tells me, I'm sorry, you're going to have to unlock me. I can't do that, Siri. That's illegal. Are you telling me you want me to do something illegal? Just do something basic like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Apple's so careful to not make the wrong decision. Siri doesn't often make any decision, and I think that's always the challenge of that process. Now I have to admit, my phone's unlocked all the time on my drive because that is my interface to my car. Like it's not. I don't use anything else, and so, but I think that is what they do with Siri will be really interesting to see whether they actually incorporate some of the AI tools into Siri or whether they keep Siri kind of the way that it's been, So, and again, we use Siri all day. I use it all day, and it once you know what it can do and what it can't do, it's really great for timers most of the time. And sometimes you set it, and then you say, "How much is left on my timer?" And Siri will go, "I don't have a timer." You're just like, "What happened?" So, but generally, it's good at timers.
Raj Shandell says maybe they call ID Apple AI. IAI. We'll see if they brand something new there. Let's see. Guy wants to get in on this. Guy?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see if there is going to be some kind of further relationship with OpenAI that gets announced today because, Microsoft made the investment, and over the years, I've been jealous of Google's, ability to answer questions just on a basic Android phone. My son is always asking, "Hey, Google this," and I'm like, "Oh man, Siri just seems lame in comparison to Google." And now with OpenAI, with the ChatGPT 4.0 Omni, I've been just blown away by the things that I can ask and how well it responds. It's amazing. So I'm hoping Siri gets this upgrade with this relationship. The big thing that I've been reading about though is that security. Will Apple engage that relationship with all these security possibilities, where, people from Congress have iPhones, where do you draw the line with that OpenAI relationship? Obviously, if Microsoft's trusting OpenAI and Sam Altman's team, there's something there. But where financially also does Microsoft say, nope, you can't do anything with Apple? So I'm curious as to today if we're going to see some kind of bridge because it's been rumored that they've sucked in all the data from YouTube into OpenAI. There's a great article in the Wall Street Journal called OpenAI or AI's Original Sin. If you guys read that article, it's worth reading of how where that data came from. And so all those videos on YouTube got ingested into OpenAI. So worth reading and knowing what's out there and how this stuff evolved, because now they can't go back. It's in there.
Nigel, you want to follow up?
Yeah, as a product manager, you always ask the question, should I buy, should I build, or should I partner? And I think that's the interesting question for AI across Apple. What things is it going to buy? And it's bought a lot. What things is it going to build? What things it's going to partner in? So when I talk about looking for a manifesto, you'll start to see how those sets of choices, I think, roll out in the short term. At least you can partner in the short term, buy later, all those sorts of things. But I'm going to look at it through the lens of what decisions have they made across those three things to bring functions, and how are they linking them together?
Alex, you want to get back?
Yeah, to what Nigel's saying, I think that what those lines look like, and I think that there's a couple things that they could do that no one else can do well, which is that A, they can decide these are the things we're going to do on the phone. There's going to be enough data for it to do it well on the phone, and or the device, your computer or whatever. And so we're going to do those things on our own, and you're not going to touch the internet to do those, and it's going to be private, it's going to be secure, it's going to be internal, and you can probably build on it. Most importantly, we're going to deliver those tools to the developers. So this is a developer conference. We're going to deliver great AI tools with hooks. So we're going to do all the AI work for you, and then we're going to hand you hooks so that you can add that to any app that you have. Anything that you want to have in there, I think that they're going to make it more and more available to the developers. That's why they talk about it at this conference. And then the question is that number one is they'll probably tell you if you're going off the reservation. So if you're going into if you're going out into the world and you're going to start using ChatGPT, they're going to tell you, hey, do you want to do that? We're going to extend it. And then my guess is that they're going to obscure your information. They're going to obscure who you are in that system. So the advantage that you'll have working through Apple is that when you make that search in ChatGPT or whatever, it's not coming back to your account. It's being anonymized before it hits there, and then it's delivering it back to you. And so I think that my guess is that some of these are pure in the dark guesses, of how they're going to look at AI. But I think that there's going to be that kind of what's personal to you, then what's out there, and then anonymization is something that Apple keeps on adding more and more to. And I got to say, as an Apple user, you get really used to signing up for people's web pages with, I don't want to give you my email.
Right.
And then it makes up something.
Greek, yeah.
And so it's an interesting process.
I'm actually relying on that more and more as I write things. Instead of putting my email address to fill me up with more spam and things like that, I'm using their Greeking of your email address thing, and it's really useful. Jason, more thoughts?
I love Hide My Email, and that is a perfect example of how something that's been around forever, a random email generator, combined with a forwarder that's fast, can become a feature once it actually exists at scale. And that's really what I want to see is ML AI is a technology. It's not a feature. And the guidelines that I think will be shown will really give us a good sense of where Apple intends to be going with this first major intentional public soiree into ML AI.
Alex?
And one thing that to watch for is that Apple continues to basically every year they're pulling this trap very slowly in, which is that they're removing all of your data away from advertisers, away from the social media networks, away from all of those things. If they did all of it at one time, there'd be congressional. They're on the border of congressional hearings right now, and there'd be congressional hearings immediately if Apple did it all at one time. But every year, you see them take that little perimeter and just pull it in a little bit more than they did the last year. So look at how they're going to allow users to obfuscate who they are. Just that they are someone, and they can identify themselves as someone, but they're going to keep on making it harder and harder to track them, harder and harder to get their contact information, harder like that. Apple's they started with you're gonna ask for things like please don't track me kind of thing. At some point they're going to enforce it. They're just going to say, well, if they hit that thing, you're not going to get any information, because right now theoretically the app could ignore that. It's asking you not to track, but it'll be interesting to see if this year it says do not track, just turn it off. So Apple warms everybody up to that, but they're going to keep turning those things off, and that has huge impacts on the advertising world and which means nothing to Apple. like they don't care how that market is impacted by what they're doing. They simply want to add that add the functionality to people who we know that the average person doesn't want any of those things.
So for me, for this year, as I'm watching this, I'm going to be listening for 2 primary words and 1 secondary, or its primary, secondary are good and big and tertiary. The first one is notes. I want to hear them talk about notes because it is the single most used Apple invention that I have. It is now running large swaths of my life. I'm using it constantly. I've heard a few little things on the web about them building some AI intelligence into it, about linking more of my graphics and things like that. They're already doing it. So I want to see if in the keynote they mention it even once or twice or maybe 3 times over the course of things. That would make me feel really good that something I'm putting a lot of my data in is continuing to evolve and get better. I also want to hear the word shortcuts because I'm not using them anywhere near as much as I should. And I'm looking for ways to automate and make my life easier. And that's one of their primary, everybody in the Apple platform has that. I imagine the developers will be hearing about ways they can leverage both of those 2 technologies. And the third one is just for me. It's about freeform. Freeform has been this peripheral thing around me about some kind of whiteboarding tool. I know Apple owns it, and I know that they're working on it, but they haven't really done much with it. And I'm finding myself in so many collaborative circumstances with authors, with the people here on the panel, and others that I'm managing stuff. I'm interested in whether or not it's time for them to push a little more on freeform, or whether it's just going to be one of those tools that sits in the background and maybe I never have to use. I don't know yet, but those are the things that I'm listening for. Just those 3 words, my personal little drinking game. Courtney wanted to get back in. Courtney?
Yeah, I just wonder if what they're going to do with AI. The Siri may be tarnished beyond recovery. Maybe they'll come up with a new name for a personal assistant to try and wash them clean of the bad taste that Siri has left in everyone's mouth. So perhaps they could move that direction. And I'm not sure. I'm with Alex as to the anonymization of all that return information, because that's what advertisers live off. That's what Google and that's what YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok all survive of their algorithms that target advertising to you. And if everything is washed clean of user information going back through the Apple app, I don't think those platforms are going to want to continue to be on the iPhone, and that's majority of their output. So I don't know how that's going to work.
Alex?
Well, I think that they're doing it, and I mean they've been doing it. They've been going down that path. Now they're not really interested in what Apple's been killing off is not first party status, or second party status, like the YouTube tracking you while you're in the YouTube app is something that Apple's hasn't been doing anything with. And YouTube doesn't sell your data, but basically what Apple's really going after is not allowing anybody to sell your data to somebody else. Like give them the ability to do that. And so that, and making it harder and harder. And Apple, again, all those companies need that data. Apple doesn't need that data. And so the thing is they have a benefit of just being able to add something that a lot of users want, and they don't really care, whether it's someone else. It's adding a benefit to it. No one has a choice. I mean, these big companies don't have a choice of taking their service off of Apple's platform at this point. It's too large of a platform, and it's too high of a revenue source because Apple users tend to spend more money. So it's really, they wouldn't be able to survive without it. That's why they constantly are trying to push back on what Apple's doing there. One thing that'll be interesting, I was going to, off of what was mentioned about shortcuts, is that I think that's what's going to be interesting. What Bill was talking about is whether we're going to see things like AI where you say, hey, when I walk into my room, I want this, and this to happen. And it just builds a shortcut for you to do that. That's the kind of AI that would be
absolutely,
just mind blowing. If you could just say, when I click the V button, I want it to, or when I click this thing, I want my lights to turn off and this to turn on, and this, home automation of something to me, just describing what I wanted and having it just build that all out.
You write the code for me. I just want to run it.
And when I look at and you could people will start building very complex automation systems, based on that. It'd be really interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one this year because we can see this effect of AI and the rest of these things flooding the world. And I want to see how Apple approaches the whole thing in these tools that I touch every single day. It's one thing to say, let me write a novel generatively or something like that. And some people want to do that, but a lot of people are too busy to do those big things. But boy, the things that help you every single day be more effective, more efficient, and get your jobs done so you have more time to do what you want, those will be powerful. Let's get into our questions.
First question is from Alex 4D Goldner in London. What non-AI announcements might Apple make in order to make the headlines that distract that they haven't taken the lead in AI? A headline to impress developers, a headline for Apple fans, a headline for investors, a headline for the general public?
Nigel, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's the question. If you try and solve all those problems, you are going to have a mess. And I think this is the reason why I don't think we'll see hardware. I think Apple's got to really focus on where it wants its development community to go. I don't think it's going to worry about all those other things. I think it's going to focus. If we see hardware, it means they're distracted.
Alex.
Yeah. Again, I don't share the view that Apple has to do anything significant with AI. I think since most of these AI tools all work on Apple products, I don't think there's any rush. I think they're gonna lay out, as Nigel said, they're gonna lay out their plan of what they're doing. They're gonna have some features that are going to be put into it, but I don't think that they have to try to catch up with everybody else because most of those services are all on their platform anyway. So they're not in the same place that everyone else is. When you're in software, it's like someone could use their software versus your software. On Apple, everybody's using all of those things on the Apple platform. So I think that there's a little less rush, but I do think that there's massive opportunity to tie in AI into a lot of the, again, we've talked about this over and over again, being able to say, look at, in 2016 or 2 or 3 years ago, I talked to Guy about something that was related to live views or whatever. Can you just pull up that email for me? And it just goes and finds it. Like that kind of stuff is life-changing. Like that, like you can talk about it, doing other things, but that kind of thing. And if you deliver a bunch of those kinds of things back to developers, that's the big thing because this is a developer conference. Right now, a lot of developers aren't putting a ton of AI. I mean, many people are putting AI into their things, but if Apple hands them, this is what Apple's really good at. Like a lot of apps look really good because Apple gives these great libraries to developers to make all their buttons look great and all the other things look good and everything else. And Apple has really good ones. And the reason you see a lot of the things like tiles and Zoom ISO on the Mac and not on the PC is because of the libraries. It's because of the libraries and the way the system is built. It's optimized for that. So if Apple starts optimizing all these things for AI, it becomes a really interesting puzzle as far as providing Apple developers with great tools that you can just add AI into your app without knowing much about it or without having to figure it out, and most importantly, without paying for it. So Apple has the money to do this, and this is one of the values of paying your 30% when they sell, or 15% if you're a small developer. You're paying your percentage, and Apple's going to give you a bunch of libraries that does all of it. What if they came and said, we're going to do a library like chat, like whatever, but it's not going to cost you a thing to put it into your app. And Apple can afford to do that. Or it's a very, it's costing you what you're already paying, for when you sell your app. So there's a whole lot of places where Apple could really grow that.
Let's go to Alexander.
I think we're going to see some pretty big updates to the Photos app. I mean, one of the cool things that the Photos apps did with machine learning and all that sort of stuff is like the ability to just automatically, like if you long press on a subject in a photo, you can automatically cut that person out. And in this example with a cat here, if I actually hit the lookup button, it knows what breed of cat this is. So I think that's incredibly useful. And I think we're going to see a lot more useful features like that in the Photos app, because the Photos app needs some updates for sure.
Absolutely. Guy.
Yeah, I wonder what the future is with being able to store these LLMs locally so that they're super fast. So if you are offline somewhere, that you still have access to maybe some of the top 50,000 things that people ask, and they're just super responsive. I just bought a PC laptop in Omen, and I was able to add a second NVMe drive in there. And I know Apple makes money, obviously, off of selling bigger storage for their iPads, their iPhones, their laptops. But could you imagine having a MacBook Pro with an 8 terabyte drive with a second 8 terabyte drive, and now you could run your local LLM locally right on that thing? So I'm excited to see what macOS 15 has in terms of storing this stuff, possibly caching it locally, and being able to have interoperability with the phones, with the whole ecosystem. So for those of us that have the phone, the iPad, and the desktop machine, how that stuff all flows together as an ecosystem.
Alex, you want to get back in?
And you can build a very effective LLM in 100 gigs or 500 gigs or whatever. You just need a bigger hard drive for your computer. So Apple could theoretically build something that was extremely effective, not just the top 50,000, but the top, most of what you'd want to ask at 100. If you're willing to give it 100 gigs of your drive. So there's a lot that can be done on the computer if they want to.
Let's go to the next question.
Graham Cardwell in Belfast, Northern Ireland asks, hoping to upgrade my Intel MacBook Pro with something that's about to be discarded after today's WWDC. What's going to give me best bang for the buck? Top level M1, mid-level M2, or entry-level M3?
Nigel, what's your prediction here?
As we like to say, it depends what you want to do with it. I mean, I think any of those processors are going to be a dramatic difference. I think there are probably 4 or 5 things when I look at buying my next Mac. And by the way, I'm hoping they don't announce the new MacBooks today, because my wallet can't take that damage, and I'm thinking of it. But I think there are 4 or 5 things you look at, and some of them will be more important to you than others. And some people will say, oh, that's crazy. But here they are. Size of screen. They're very deliberate with their sizes of screen. If you want a 15-inch, if you want a 13-inch, you are going to find yourself making decisions. After that, I'm going to leave one till the end that probably most people put first. After that, then I ask myself, how much memory am I going to need? Is the type of work I'm going to do need 8, 16, 24, or something like that? Because you're going to find that that's then the next filter. The next filter after that might be the outputs. How many outputs, how many ports do I need on the side of it? And then after you've got your brain through that, you're going to find there aren't a lot of options in terms of processor. And you're going to then get directed to where you want. I have used the Maxes and the Pros. I don't think I'm even stretching them very much. So unless you're going to do a piece of work, I guess the one I missed out was hard drive. Do I need that 8 terabyte hard drive to have that LLM on it? Unless you're really going to do something that's really going to stretch the processor, the high-end ones are really an amazing box to do amazing amounts of stuff on. But for a laptop, that's probably not what you're going to use it for. So you've got to look at all of those 5 things, decide the work you're going to do, and work out what the combination of those is best for you, and then it will sort of pick itself.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I still have my Intel Mac 2020 that cost an arm and a leg because it's got the 32 gigs of RAM, and it was the i9, and it was a good machine in its day, but I still pack it along with me. But I also have a little MacBook Air, an M series, and I'm surprised at how great that thing handles. The one thing that I'm noticing lacking is the screen. So I would actually be looking at 2 things. I'd be looking at what you do most of the time. Do you consume content on these devices? And if you do, the new iPad, that screen, don't discount the fact that there's an OLED screen that looks way better on an iPad than it does on the MacBook series. So depending on what you want to do, if you're doing video editing, then yeah, you want a strong MacBook, but why not have both? Why not have an iPad that you can consume on, or a MacBook Air, and then have a beefier desktop machine? I don't know if I'd just go whole hog in, because I've seen people buy these $8,000 fully loaded MacBooks, and I'm like, man, I'd be scared to carry that thing around. That's just too much money on my back, leaving around in an airport or something. It feels dangerous.
Let's go to the next question.
Next question is from Josh in New York. Do you think there will be any major updates to Pro apps?
Jason Bache is going to lead us off. Jason?
I think that the updates to Pro apps have already been announced. They were announced a couple of weeks ago when the new iPads were announced. As far as whether or not we're going to have a working beta, for example, for our multicam, oh yeah, that'd be very exciting.
Alex?
We don't expect anything major unless it's going to underline AR, VR, or AI. So that, so if it does one of those things, they could show some previews on the apps. We wouldn't expect a new update on the apps until August or September.
Let's go to the next question.
Next question is from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. Apple Intelligence is a stroke of branding genius. Will it supersede the phrase artificial intelligence the way iPhone preempted the term cell phone?
I don't know. Nigel, what do you think?
Well, I think Alex said some of this earlier, that if they do, they're going to really annoy a lot of people, which I'm sure will entertain them. As a branding exercise, it is a brave thing to do. And when you do brave branding things, the thing that makes them work is not the announcement, but how much money you put behind that announcement. It's called the activation. It's a bit like sports sponsorship. Putting your company's name on the back of a Ferrari is great, but you have to activate that in the rest of your marketing. So the question is, if they really are going to do Apple Intelligence, how are they going to activate it? How are they going to put enough money? That's TV advertising. It's in products. It's in promotions. It's all across the marketing mix to really drive that home. And if they do, they may do the I, which was what we talked about, all these devices. If they don't, it won't work. But if someone could make it work, it would be Apple.
For me, it's a branding stroke of genius, and it'll be interesting to see how it develops. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as Steve Jobs said, you can have a great idea, but it's the implementation. The brute force that Apple puts behind whatever they do. Red Bull is a good example of a brand that sells an overpriced product in a small cup that doesn't taste very good, that isn't good for you, and they do sell a lot of it because they're really, really good at branding. So they do a lot of things that connect their brand to excitement and fun. And so I think that's what Apple is going to have to do. And so ad agencies and folks selling ads are going to be very happy with Apple trying to get this over the hump if that's what they actually do.
I also think it's a brilliant thing because one of the things about branding is you want to differentiate. So they are laying down a heavy marker here. Everybody has artificial intelligence. We are doing it differently. Ours is supposed to design differently, and we are branding it as Apple Intelligence. It's not the same as what you see on all of the other services. So we'll see if they can leverage that internal thinking, which struck me, into being farther. So we'll see how they position it in about an hour and a half. Let's go to the next question.
Bobby Rafferty in Central Florida asks, will Apple finally talk about apps and games that uses the M4 graphics now with ray tracing abilities?
Alex, what do you think?
Maybe. I mean, they might show it off. I will say, as someone who rendered, we talked about in the first hour, someone who rendered a highly reflective ship for a year and a half without any ray tracing, meh. Ray tracing is, like ray tracing, everyone wants to do it because it's hard and everything else, and it does produce better reflections and so on and so forth. Is the average, there are so many other places that make a bigger difference to how real something looks, like anti-aliasing, atmospheric effects. We want to talk about ray tracing, but the atmospheric effects and particle systems and anti-aliasing makes way more of a difference to how something appears for someone. Level of detail, all those things make a huge difference. So they might talk about ray tracing, but those are the things that really make a difference when you're looking at a scene.
Jason?
Yeah, they might talk about it, but at the end of the day, as long as you are compiling your game or your app, you will automatically get this. And they don't really want to get into the the tiny little nuances, at least not during the keynote, of like what ray tracing is and what it can do, because the people that are aware of what it is already want it, and it probably already put in, the 3 lines of code that are going to be required so that the minute the operating system supports it, bam, you just get it all of a sudden, and your FPS just go through the roof.
There you go. Let's go to the next question.
Michael Smith in Silverado, California asks, with limited panelists at the Office Hours Apple event, is there a place to watch or listen to the Office Hours crew?
Alex, tell us how this is going to work.
So we're going to be streaming at 10. So at 10 a.m. we'll start streaming. We'll start streaming a couple minutes before, but not very much. and there'll be about 8 of us sitting there watching the show, and we're going to talk about it. So it's a second-ear experience. We're not going to show the show through our show. So what we're expecting to do is open up the YouTube page. You can open up the Apple YouTube page and our YouTube page and play them next to each other. so and you'll hear us talk about it. Over top of that, our timing hopefully will be the same amongst ourselves, which is a huge breakthrough for us. Your time we might be a little ahead or a little behind your timing there. So we will still have Mukana open. You can still give us comments and questions and so on and so forth via Mukana. We will be reading those and managing them. So definitely bring those with you and jump in. Watch the show, talk to us about what you think, and we'll bring those things up. The chat will be opened. We'll be reading your chats as well. So there's 8 of us on the screen, but all of you will have the ability to add your 2 cents as well.
And people find it the same way they find the show every morning. Is it?
It's on the. It will. Let's get back to you on that. It will definitely be in. It should. It'll be in. It'll be in Mukana. It'll also be on YouTube. It will not. So
it'll
be
in. If you normally consume the show via YouTube, just do the same thing
Mukana.
you always do.
You can do those. The way I would watch it, to be honest, would be I would use the light version of Mukana with the YouTube channel and use that. Use your phone to ask questions or chat. But that's up to everybody here. What I would say is that it will not be streamed because of the way I'm doing it. It won't be streamed over audio, so you'll need to be on YouTube or.
Oh, okay. So the IceCast normal pure audio play is not in.
We need to add that. I'm just happy that we'll have something. So this is all testing. Like we're testing something. If we keep on doing these and do more of them, we'll do more of that. So.
Okay, great. Let's go on to the next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington asks, what are some of the possible distinctive differences between iOS 18 update and iPadOS 18?
Alex, do we know?
Typically iPads sit halfway between macOS and iOS. They're kind of like they have some of the iOS components, but they have but they want to be a Mac almost, with the touchscreen. And so you kind of see those, but usually it's things that don't make sense from an interface to put. It's too small or too fiddly for the iOS itself. And so I think that's usually what we see in between those. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage it. A lot of the cool things go across both of those. It's usually I find that it's usually interface things that get swapped between the two.
Guy Cochran?
Yeah, with these beefy processors and the iPads M4s, that's the predictions that I'm seeing on the rumor sites is that we're going to see something that's going to stress those processors. So maybe it will be Final Cut, will it be DaVinci Resolve? What will it be that really showcases how fast these things are? Or will it be some kind of AI thing that's local or somehow we got to see some speed because they want to sell units, and they got to show something that's going to make us salivate besides the screen. I'm already salivating. I went to Costco and just saw the new iPad and I'm like, oh man, Nigel, did you get yours? Did you already get your iPad?
Yeah, I got one too.
Thumbs up for us. Oh, Jason and all right. Well, we'll have to have you guys talk more about it. Somebody plant a question for tomorrow. Alex, you had some follow-up?
It'll be really interesting to see because this is the problem. I don't think it's an OS problem that's really there. I think it's that developers just don't know what to do that could push I think Apple has to show them like this is how you push the full envelope. And and I think they may want to start showing here's all the polygons that we have here. Here's 50 million polygons or 250 million polygons that we can move around with tons of texture maps and so on and so forth. And those things, you could build some pretty impressive things if they unleash that.
Nigel, you want to come back?
I do have the iPad. I love it. It looks great. I probably wish I didn't know about the difference in the processor when I bought mine, so you may just want to think about that with the memory things. I don't think it does anything much different, by the way, at this point than the M1 version I had before it. It looks.
Do you have a pen?
I do have the pencil, but haven't spent a lot of time with it yet. So, but outside the use of the pencil, and it looks a bit better. I haven't really seen much difference. So I am hoping that something that they've TikToked this and they've done the hardware first and the software is going to follow. And I think if they can do that, that they'll get greater sales of the iPad.
WWDC is a great place to find out about that because these are the developers who will be writing the code for the programs that will be coming to the new iPad. So it'd be a great place to find out about it. Let's go to the next question.
Roz Humphreys from Comox, British Columbia, Canada asks, rumors are that much of the Apple intelligence will only apply to those of the latest iPhone 15 Pro. How will this play out?
Good question. Alex, what do you think?
It's quite possible. I mean, it is a faster processor. I don't think they're going to artificially hamper it. I think it's going to be something that can they reliably deliver the performance that they're trying to deliver. And I think that, I will say that my experience, the processing power, definitely the camera power, but the processing power between the 15 and the 14 was a huge jump. Like it was not, like usually there's like a half jump and then a big jump, the big jump between the two. And so I can imagine it not being able to, them building things into it that they wouldn't be able to go backwards any further than that.
Guy Cochran?
Yeah, you're going to see people like me with 14s going, all right, time to go to the store and go get the 15.
But don't do it. Don't do it. You're past that moment. In June, if you're watching this,
16.
There's going to be a new phone in 3 months. Do not buy a new phone. We've passed about April 1 is the last time you should buy a new phone from Apple. We know when the next one comes out. Just wait for the next version because it's getting really competitive. And we expect to see huge jumps in the camera on the 16. So it's that's the rumor.
Past the PTP, the phone tipping point.
Yeah.
Speaking of rumors, I was at a friend that works at Apple's, and they said, "Are you watching WWDC this week?" And I was like, "Yeah, maybe." And they're like, "You'll want to watch it." So for those of you that are on the fence,
there's been a lot of. It's one of the reasons we're broadcasting it is there's a lot of chatter, just chatter in the the intelligence agencies will tell you that there's a lot of chatter. There's a lot of chatter about a lot of things that people want.
Exactly what you just heard from Guy. I would do it if I were you. That's what you hear.
I want to watch it.
You might want to tune in. It's not doing anything.
There's a lot of
Monday.
Can't wait to see what you think of what happens.
And if Tim Cook is on a bicycle, I'm telling you that velodrome is going to be
there you go. There's already a lot of bicycles on the campus.
Oh God, yes, everywhere. Let's go to the next question.
Paul Wallace from Austin, Texas asks, there is particular interest in the rumored advancements in Siri and the integration of AI across Apple's operating systems at WWDC tomorrow. What do you hope that Apple will do?
So let's go to Jason first and then Alex. Jason.
Well, I'm going to take what Bill said and push it a little bit further. Of course, Notes runs so much of my life, and that double front bracket to be able to smartly insert things. You can do hot links, for example, between Notes just by doing a double right corner bracket, which is what shift period. It's so handy and it saves so much time, so you can just smart insert a note. I would love to see some sort of generative model that like, I don't get the title of the note exactly right, but it'll just start searching and intelligently do that for me. That would be fantastic, and it's completely doable. Please do it. Please do it. Please do it.
Alex?
Yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see how much they tie in Siri into this whole thing, because I just don't know if they need to. But so it'll be interesting to see. But they've spent a lot of money on Siri and on things that they haven't released. So it'll be interesting to see how far they go there.
Let's go to the next question.
Roz Humphreys in Comox, British Columbia asks, if you could have any new, pro or not, app from Apple, what would it be?
Let's start with Guy Cochran. Guy.
Yeah, so I was in San Diego last week, and I was driving down the road, and Jonas needed a hand with something, and I was able to pull out my iPad. This is the older one, but there's an app on here called Splashtop, and I have to pay for it. It's expensive, but I have multiple users. But I was able to log into this really fast M2 Ultra 64 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte, and do an operation here. And it feels like I'm at that computer. Like, it's so responsive, but I got to pay a lot of money for this. And so Apple's remote desktop, I wish that they would make it so that it's very seamless for me to go to my home machine or a network of machines. So then I can have the power of my little cloud anywhere in the world.
You're getting a ton of nods from the rest of the panel in real time as you said that. Nigel.
Yeah, I've got sort of an extension to that, which is, if we look at what Blackmagic is doing with their cloud and their production things, I think Apple needs to stitch some of that stuff better together on their side as well. And I don't think they're going to do this. But if they added into that a proper streaming infrastructure, if they decided to do their version of Ecamm, Mimo Live, or something like that, I think that would be really interesting. I just don't expect them to do it.
Oh, that's interesting. The iPad has multicam now, and they've kind of rebuilt some code around that. That's an interesting thought. Alex, your thoughts?
And I don't know with AI whether it matters anymore. I've always felt like there's this huge gap between shortcuts and Xcode that could be fulfilled with nodal-based programming. Just being able to build a bunch of dependency nodes that they're, shortcuts is very, linear in my opinion. Whereas I could build a bunch of dependencies and everything else and build something out visually. I don't know, maybe AI replaces all of that, but it just feels like there's a lot of people that aren't going to learn how to use Xcode, but shortcuts isn't enough, and they would benefit from a kind of a nodal, if we think of like an Isadora, but probably with rounded corners. so but imagine doing that for all the automation, or even be able to build those programs and publish them to the. If you were able to take note, visually program, Microsoft's done this for decades, being able to visually program and build something and then be able to publish it. I think that would be that'd be a really interesting thing for Apple to make more easily done.
Jason, you had another thought?
I just want the equivalent of audio hijack for my iPad so it doesn't stop one video when another one's played. Like, that's it. And I know why it can't be done, and I know why they haven't done it in the past, but please, come on. I bought your new fancy thing. Make it work.
So we have a lot of prep to do for this second hour experience. Remember, that happens in 1 hour after the official close of the show at 10 o'clock Pacific. That's 1 o'clock Eastern time. That's when the Apple keynote will take place. And I think a lot of us are going to go get ready for our second hour experience. I hope you join us there. Thanks for listening today. And don't forget our special thanks every single day, first and foremost, to our producers. That's those of you who ask questions and put them in the queue today. The people who drive the topics and the run of show, and everybody who votes on those questions. Thank you to everybody who's in Mokana and who watches the show and participates in that stream live at the same time. Thank you for helping us prioritize and determine what we talk about every day. Our incredible panelist group that comes every day, show up to try to help everybody and answer questions. The amazing amount of experience that people bring to this is astonishing. And it's been a privilege to hang out with everybody for this amount of time, and I hope this goes for a long time. Our back-end crew, unbelievable numbers of people that you don't see every day. You see their names in the credit scroll at the end of this. So I would encourage you, please hang around a little bit and take a look at some of those names. Without all of them, all around the world, the show isn't what it is. So we appreciate everybody's effort to bring this to you every day. That's pretty much the show until we come back on in 1 hour and 8 minutes. So I'll sign off for now saying, if you wanted to get this fascinating information and you wanted to go to people in person who've appeared on the show or contributed to it, you would have had to travel 52,000 miles. That's 63,000 kilometers. And that's the equivalent of 410 million bananas for scale. We'll see you in after hours when we don't see you at the special event starting in 1 hour.
1 hour and 7 minutes.
Yes, I know. I was precise before, and I
so
averaged after.
5 of us are actually on this thing. So, hey guys, I'll send you the link here in just a minute. I'm going to go get a couple things set up, and probably right after 9, I'll send it to you because I have to make sure that it all works. So we'll do a test stream.
Should we look via email or in?
Yeah, I'll send it to you in Discord. I'll send it to Discord.
Okay.
So just
perfect.
Yeah. Do you want us there extra early just to warm things up? Make sure just our image, just drop it in.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to you about 9:05, and then we'll spend the hour making sure that it's all, because I just want to make sure everything's
perfect
working.
Yeah,
it's a test.
Push my
Just give me 10 minutes.
So we don't need to put up our iPads and do the second experience the old way, right? We should be able to.
That's the goal. That's what
That's
we're
the
doing.
dream.
We're going to test it. We're going to double test it. We're going to triple test it.
It's
but
the
that's
desperation
goal.
fallback, though, is to have your old rig ready.
Yeah, exactly.
This
But
is
I think
retiling.
we spent 3 hours on it
Okay.
yesterday working
Go
through
grab
it. So
my
I think we've
guitar.
got a pretty good plan. So stay tuned.
Excellent.
All right, so 9:05,
forward
I'll send
to
it
it.
out to you guys. All right, stand by.